Okay. Just a moment. All right. Let me know when you're ready, please. Hopefully we have resolved some of the technical issues.
Beth, had any strange cars in your front yard lately? Safer.
Yeah, I see somebody walking on Melvin every now and then. Yeah.
Hear echo.
Okay, yours is an David,
Which is
you have one, that's not.
well, I could just not have the on button.
Oh, there.
Yeah, that's operator error.
Just checking in. How are we doing?
Yeah.
Are we ready to go? We are ready?
Yes.
All right. Call the meeting to order. American Canyon Fire Protection District Board meeting for June 25th, 2024. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, I don't know.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joseph,
Here.
Board Member Washington,
Here.
Vice Chair Oro,
Here.
Chair Garcia.
Here. Board Member Albadamos is excused. Moving on to report on closed session, confirmation reportable action. Mr. Ross?
Chair and board members, members of the public, the board convened an open session at 5:03 PM after ascertaining no comments on the matters agendized for closed session. Adjourned to closed session at 5:04. Will be completed at 5:29. There'll be a written report upon return from closed session, consistent with the provisions of Government Code Section 5497.1B.
Recording in progress.
That would conclude the report unless there are questions.
Any questions from board members?
No, sir.
Seeing none, hearing none, thank you, Mr. Ross. We'll continue with our agenda. Next is public comment on any item not on the agenda. Any public comment received?
No, Chair. Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, hang on a second. Go ahead, please.
Good evening. I would be remiss if I did not give my deepest thanks to the fire department and the police department for coming to my house last night. I appreciate everything. I always praise you anyhow, but, it's different when you can give a personal praise. And I just want to thank you for everything you've done. For the council, everybody reached out to me. It was very touching. Luckily, everything was fine. But I do have to say that the fire department was amazing. I mean, they stayed there for over 2 hours, and they were able to help get the vehicle out of my yard, and they gave me different views of things with the leakage of oil and stuff that's gone into the property and stuff, Long story short, I'm safe. They didn't come into my house. If it wasn't for my flagpole, thank God for the flag. He would have been in my kitchen, but my dogs were safe. I was safe. That's all I was concerned about. The individual was safe, and again, my hat's off to the fire department. We just learned rehab Saturday. CERT team had training with them, and I was ready to rehab. They were there for a couple hours. I was ready to rehab, but they didn't need it. But anyhow, I do want to thank you publicly for all that you've done, and I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public speaker? Anybody online?
Justin?
Oh, Justin.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council.
Good evening.
I just started my my internship for Oak Creek, and I love this new job. Today I was over at the fire department, and we did some carpet move. We had to move carpet and put in the hallway, make it nice. And I'm so happy to see our fire chief. And I just gonna make a comment. Who to put that note on the pole 9? Tell we need the grass cut down because it's tall now. I hope we're gonna be looking at new house in over here, West Carrington Warren. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else online?
No, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'll close public comment this time on items not on the agenda and move on with our agenda. Next up would be agenda changes. Board members, if there's no item to be pulled, I'll accept a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll make that motion to accept the consent.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joseph?
Yes.
Board Member Washington?
Yes.
Vice Chair Oro?
Yes.
Chair Garcia?
Yes. Thank you, Board. Moving on, we have public hearing this evening. Item number 11, preliminary budget for fiscal year 2024-2025.
Thank you, Chair. It's my pleasure to introduce Ken Campo, who's worked with the district for a very long time on a myriad of things, but puts in a lot of work helping us develop our budget. So he's here tonight to present our preliminary budget, and then we'll come back in September for the final budget adoption. So Ken,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, members of the board. As the Chief indicated, we're here to discuss the preliminary budget adoption and conduct the public hearing. So I'll try and get started. Here we go. So a quick overview. As we usually do, we'll kind of go through where we are, budget to actual to date through May. And we'll take a look at the preliminary budget for 24-25 fiscal year. Take a closer look at the general operating fund, review the major revenues for the district, look at our updated forecasts, and I apologize, we only have one forecast, not multiple forecasts. And then we'll take a look at the capital projects funds. Okay, here we go. So this first slide is looking at the general fund reserves. So this is just the general operating fund, and the board, I believe, is familiar with this slide. So the red brick across the bottom represents the district's contingency reserve fund, or rainy day reserves, and those are set at 20% of general fund revenues. And for this current fiscal year, 23-24, that's about $1.5 million. The wavy blue areas on top of that, the brick represents the operating cash reserves, if you will, of the district. Those are set at, as of June 30 of each year, at 50% of general fund expenditures. You can see the discrepancy where we are at May of '24 versus where we were last year. Last year, the reserves totaled about $5.7 million. This year, it's closer to $4 million. The reason is there was quite a delay in receiving the second property tax payment from the county, and we'll see that throughout the slides, and we'll talk about that as we get into the revenues. There we go. So this is a look at just the cash balances as we progress through the fiscal year. I've added these gray bars, which represent all the cash of the district. The two lines going across are just tracking the general operating fund cash, where the gray bars represents the total cash balances for the district, which includes those capital funds, the fire mitigation fee fund and the fleet facilities and equipment fund. So which amount to about $1.5 million between the two of those. But again, you can see where the current year in May we're at $4.4 million. Last year we were right about $6 million. So again, it reflects that delay in property tax funds coming in. And just point out, typically our lowest point cash-wise during the year is in November, just before that December property tax payment. This year that was about $2.8 million. Now that $2.8 million was still 1.3 million above the contingency reserve amount. So even at the lowest point during the year, we were able to still cover the contingency reserve fund and have another 1.3 million on top of that, which turns out to be beneficial as we experience this delay in payments from the county.
Excuse me, when do we expect payment from the delay?
Actually, it just came in earlier this week. We received about $1.7 million. It came in like Monday. It should have been here a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
It's the thing. So now we're waiting on the interest, interest earnings to follow.
Very good, thank you.
This is tracking salaries and benefits throughout the year. You can see it's pretty consistent. So we're at $5.2 million. I'm sorry, we're at $5.8 million currently. The budget is through May was about $6 million, so we're tracking a little under budget. Total budget for the year is $6.4 million. You see, last year at this time we were at $5.2 million. And if you recall, last year there was quite a few vacancies, so we were able to maintain staffing a little better this year. But basically, salaries and benefits are in line with budget. General fund revenues, again, you can see we're well below where we thought we would be through May at 5.6 million. We should have been up closer to that 7.4 million. Again, that was the delay in the property tax receipts, and which we were, as I mentioned, we just received those this year, or this week, earlier in the week. It's just a quick look at where we are year to date. So now if there's no questions, we'll move into the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary budget.
Questions from board directors? Sir. None? Seeing none. Please continue.
Okay, thank you. So just for those that may be watching for the first time, just a reminder, the American Canyon Fire Protection District is a separate legal entity from the City of American Canyon. We happen to share the same governing body. The City Council is the governing board for the fire district. We have a general operating fund at the district that accounts for all the core services that the district provides. So fire protection, emergency medical services, urban search and rescue, fire training, fire prevention, administration, and so on. I would point out that the district, being a special district, is also property tax dependent, so the primary source of funding for the district, as we'll see, is property tax revenue. So unlike a city, there's not different sources of revenue like sales tax, hotel taxes, that sort of thing. It's primarily property taxes. Other funds, the district has two other funds it maintains. There's the Fire Mitigation Fee Fund that accounts for the voter-approved special tax on development. The funds can only be used for capital-related expenditures. And it also accounts for the newly established capital facilities fee that the board and the city and the county adopted last year. Then we have the Fleet Facilities and Equipment Fund, which is what we call or refer to as our capital fund. It's primarily funded with transfers, grants, grant funding, other one-time sources of funds. This fund is used to maintain the district's significant investment in its capital infrastructure, really designed to promote the safety of the community and the employees, and to make sure we have funds available when needed for capital expenditures so that we're not disrupting the operating fund. These are just some of the guiding principles in developing the budget that's really been established by the board over the years. The primary focus is just making sure we can maintain long-term fiscal sustainability of the district. We can afford to continue paying our firefighters and buying the supplies and the apparatus and other capital that's needed to provide those services. We want to make sure we identify and address major unfunded liabilities, especially with respect to retirement benefits and other benefits that have been promised to employees and their families, and to make sure that, like I said earlier, that we have the capital funds necessary to continue investing in the apparatus and other safety equipment that the district needs. And we utilize these long-range financial planning tools. We have a financial forecast model that we'll go through later. We have a long-range capital improvement plan. These things help us stay on that fiscally sustainable path and help us understand the implications of some of the decisions made today on the long-term fiscal outlook of the district. Okay, so this is an overall look at the budget. So this includes the general operating fund as well as the capital funds combined. We back out the transfers, so we're not accounting for those things twice. You can see in this current fiscal year, 24, fiscal year in 24, $8.2 million in revenues overall, and $8.3 million in expenditures, primarily reflecting the capital expenditures, capital outlays, where we build funds up in certain years and then expend them in different times. For next year, fiscal year end 25, we're showing $8.8 million in revenues and roughly $8.8 million in expenditures, and we'll get into those details. So this is a closer look at the general operating fund. For current fiscal year in 24, basically $7.5 million in revenues and about $7.4 million in expenditures. So we're looking at a surplus of about $125,000 for the year, essentially break even. When we put the final budget together for this fiscal year in 24, we were looking at about $105,000 deficit. So through some savings and some additional revenues, we basically ended up on a break-even basis for the current year. Looking ahead to fiscal 24-25, about $8 million in revenue, and about 8.1 million in revenues and 8.2 million in expenditures. So again, we're looking at a deficit of about $100,000 going into fiscal 24-25. Looking a little closer at the revenues. So we have, like I said, overall revenues of 8.1 million, consisting primarily of property tax revenues, 6.7 million, representing about 83% of overall revenues. And we have the fire assessment fee, which is, again, is a voter-approved fee. Total revenue there about $816,000. And then all other revenues, all other fees and charges for the district, about $600,000. So like I was saying before, there's not a whole lot of opportunities for the district to increase its revenues, right? The property taxes are fixed. Those were set with Prop 13 in 1979. The district receives about 13 cents of the property tax dollar that's paid within the district, and it really can't change that. Again, that 13 cents is on average. It varies widely by tax rate area. It can go anywhere from 3 cents of the property tax dollar up to 30 cents of the property tax dollar, but on average it's about 13 cents. The voter-approved fire assessment fee has a cost of living increase. This year, you just approved on your consent calendar this evening, it's now about $116 per single-family unit. That will, again, grow by the CPI increase, but it's dependent on the number of units. So the more housing development there is, the more commercial development, the more fire assessment fee will grow. And you'll see in a moment that it's been pretty flat for quite a number of years, but in the last several years, with the development that's going on within the community, it's that number's starting to grow as well. And this is a look at that chart I was referring to. It just takes a look for 2008 to 2025. It's tracking the combination of property tax revenue and fire assessment fees combined. The fire assessment fees are the lighter blue bars across the bottom, and the darker gray at the top represents property tax. And you can see this is roughly the 12th consecutive year of property tax growth for the community. It's been averaging about 7% per year since 2013, which is pretty healthy rate of growth. We're fully expecting that to continue into next year. Okay, general fund expenditures, as I mentioned earlier, $8.2 million. Salaries and benefits, $7.2 million represent 88% of projected spending. Services and supplies, about $973,000. And then, similar to last year, we're not proposing a transfer to the Fleet Facilities and Equipment Fund this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but essentially, with the Napa Logistics Fund money coming in, the surplusing of the staff vehicles, and some additional grant funding that the district was able to obtain, it's taken some of the pressure off of that Fleet Facilities and Equipment Fund. So we didn't have to make that transfer this year and still be able to purchase all the necessary equipment that the district needs. Okay, looking a little closer at salaries and benefits. Again, $7.2 million represents about a $700,000 increase over the previous year. This is to maintain the sworn personnel at 15 firefighters, 6 captains, and 4 chief officer positions. I know that chiefs would really like to add another battalion chief position so they have coverage on each of the 3 shifts, but we just weren't able to work it into the budget this upcoming fiscal year. Salaries are $3.5 million of that $7.2 million. That's up about $380,000. This is reflecting, I was going to say full staffing, almost full staffing. We are anticipating a vacancy with a retirement that is occurring next week, I believe. It's going to take the district some time to fill that position. We have about a 6-month worth of vacancy built into that. Otherwise, it represents full staffing with the salary increases commensurate with the MOU that was approved earlier. Overtime at $500,000 is down $220,000. We're not anticipating any long-term workers' comp injuries and strike team deployments. Knock on wood, we get everybody back to work and healthy. Retirement net of cost share, $1.3 million. That's up $200,000. Active medical, $528,000. That's up $54,000. Again, that's reflective of full staffing and the higher salary costs. The retiree medical was a big jump this year. So this is the full annually determined contribution, which is both the actual premiums paid to retirees plus the contribution to the OPEB or the trust fund for retiree medical benefits. We had a new actuarial done, and the actuarial is about a year, or they're done every 2 years. So this is reflecting June 30 of 23. So there was a lot of downward movement in the markets, which put some upward pressure on the contribution rates. So the study we had done last year sets the rates for both 24-25 and 25-26, and both of those are calling for about a $200,000 contribution. The 2 years previous to that was pretty much zero because of it was a June 30, 21 valuation where the markets were soaring at that time. So this has can fluctuate greatly based on where things stand with the market, and that's both good and bad. It's good because it reflects that there's a lot of money set aside for these benefits. So the more money you have set aside and invested, the bigger those swings become. Lastly, workers' comp, $453,000. That's up $35,000. That is based on cost per 100 of payroll. So as your payroll goes up, then your workers' comp cost goes up commensurately. Looking at the services and supplies, just under $1 million. It's pretty close to what it was last year or this current year. It's up about $70,000. Legal and professional at $407,000. That's up almost $100,000. And I think the largest component of that is the fire plan reviews and inspection services that the district is anticipating. A lot of that will be offset by fees that are collected for development activity. IT support services, it's up about $25,000, and that's because the district is moving away from the city's contract, going to its own standalone contract, and there's probably some additional services in there that I'm not really familiar with. Liability and property insurance, on the other hand, $92,000, going up $15,000. we're anticipating, last year's increase in the premium for property and liability insurance was up probably close to 20%. And we projected another 25% increase this year. FARA is the insurance pool that the district gets its property and liability insurance through, and their estimate was anywhere from 19 to 26% increase. So those factors that are affecting homeowners' ability to get fire insurance is also impacting, the commercial side of the operations and the special districts. If you think about FARA, there's about 90 members of FARA. They're all in California. They're all California agencies. And so FARA is having difficulties, securing the underlying insurance. So I think we're going to continue to see increases here until the insurance market in California starts to stabilize. Offsetting those increases, however, is a decrease in the dispatch services provided by Napa Central Dispatch. The board recalls there were a couple of years the district was not billed, and then the last 2 years we've been catching up, so there's been double payments the last couple of years. So the $84,000 represents just the fiscal 24-25. So that's a decrease of $78,000 from last year. That helped offset those some of those other increases. Okay, this is a look at the forecast going out for the next 8 or 9 years. You can see we've been essentially operating at a break-even basis for the last couple of years. However, throughout this entire forecast, the ending fund balance remains above $5 million throughout the forecast. As I pointed out earlier, November of 23 was our lowest point in terms of cash, operating cash during the year, and that was still over $1 million above our contingency reserve. So although it shows our green bar, which is our projected ending balance in each of those fiscal years, dropping below that blue area going across, which is basically the board's reserve requirement between operating and contingency reserves, I still feel very, very comfortable the district's going to be able to sustain operations and have enough operating cash that it's not going to have to borrow from those other funds like the mitigation fee fund or the capital funds. So this really hasn't changed a lot since we looked at the last couple of forecasts. So where we see the blue revenue line exceeding the orange expenditure line, those surpluses really represent the capacity of the district in the future years to deal with that increased service demand that's going to come along with the new residential and commercial development that's happening and driving those, really driving the increases in revenues. Okay, now we'll take a look at the fire mitigation fee fund. Again, this fund is used to essentially account for the development impact fees and other development-related fees. Total revenues we're projecting at $635,000. The special mitigation tax at about $600,000, and then interest earnings at projected at $40,000. Again, these the way we project the mitigation fees is we look back over the last 5 years. We take a rolling 5-year average, and then we've been adding some additional amounts for the Watson Ranch development and other commercial development that we know is coming. So that this year it's total is about $600,000. The proposed spending is the $200,000 transfer to the capital fund or the fleet facilities and equipment fund, and we'll take a look at that next. But we're projecting at the end of the year to have about a little under $2 million in this mitigation fee fund, which has been pretty consistent. This is a closer look at the capital expenditures proposed for next year. Revenues of $300,000 for this fleet facilities and equipment fund. We have asset disposals. We're showing $44,000. It was, I think in total it's about $50,000. It's kind of depending on how the city wants to account for the sale. We've kind of viewed it as an offset to the enterprise lease payments, but the city may be recognizing, for accounting purposes, recognizing the sale in this current year, and we'll make those adjustments at final budget. Again, I mentioned the Napa Logistics Park contribution, $50,000 a year. I'm thinking that started around 2017 or so, 2018. I think we've collected about 7 years, so we have like three or 4 years to go on that. Again, there's that transfer from the fire mitigation fee fund of $200,000, and we don't keep a large cash balance in this fund, so interest earnings are projected about $5,000. We're proposing to spend about $677,000, $177,000 more than last year. Equipment expenditures of $197,000. 72,000 of that is for structural and wildland turnouts, replacement turnouts for the firefighters. And then another 30,000 for ALS equipment. I think there were some Lucas chest compression devices and some airbags that we may be getting grant funding for those. So hopefully we'll get grant funding for those. Facilities at $53,000. I think 20,000 of that is replacing some aging appliances and other equipment, along with some technology improvements. Fleet at $61,000. That's primarily repairs for the aging engines and other apparatus. We're hoping to get those new engines in next year, 24, 25, fingers crossed. And then lastly, the vehicle and equipment lease payments, the enterprise lease payment of about $78,000. Again, that's offset by $50,000 of disposal of old vehicles. And then $287,000 payment on the 2 new engines. So it's a 7-year lease purchase. I think by the time they get here, we'll be down to 4 payments left or something.
So, excuse me, so we're paying the lease even though we haven't received it yet? Good.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah,
well.
you may recall when we initially ordered the engines, it was approved by the board. We call it leasing, but essentially we're financing the engines. But we purchased the engines, we paid in full upfront at time of order because we received a significant discount in the overall price by doing that. So while it's called leasing, it's essentially we're essentially making payments no different than if you purchased a car. It's just in our world it's called a lease program.
Just trying to get to my final slide here. There we go. So our recommendation is to go ahead and hold the public hearing and approve the resolution adopting the preliminary budget for fiscal year 24-25. We're glad to answer any questions that the
Thank you for the presentation.
Sir.
It's always very informative. Question or discussion from council before we open public hearing?
I have none.
Anything?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll now open public hearing. We're open for public comment on this matter. Anybody wishing to comment? Questions? All right, we'll go to online. Anybody online?
No one's online, Chair.
No one's online. Last call from the public. I will close public hearing on this matter right now. There being no indication of public comment. Return to the board for further discussion, desired action. This is an action item.
If no one has any objections, I'll make a motion to approve the resolution number 2024, next in order, adopting the preliminary budget for the fiscal year 2024 through 2025.
I'll second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
Board Member Joseph,
Yes.
Board Member Washington,
Yes.
Vice Chair Oro,
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes. Thank you, board. And the final on the budget will be on what date?
I don't have the exact date on top of my head. It'll be the fourth Tuesday in September.
Fourth Tuesday in September.
Thank you.
Very much. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you all. Any chair board comments, committee reports, et cetera? Future agenda items? Seeing none, hearing none. Chief Oral report?
Thank you, Chair. I promise I won't talk about budgets or numbers in the chief's report, but I do have a couple things I'd like to share with the board as well as the public. The first one is today, or this afternoon, while our crews were out training on our new boat, they had their first call for service with the boat. They were able to assist a stranded jet skier back to the docks safely. So even though we're training, we're still out there serving the public whenever we're in the public's eye. So kind of a neat little scenario today. Luckily, no one was hurt, but and it had a very successful outcome. Couple other things. The cruise recently, we participated. We sent an engine on a strike team to help assist with the Arrow fire in Calaveras County. It was rather a short deployment, but happy to say that the crews returned home safely, and just happy that we were able to help our fellow counties out with providing a resource in their time of need. Ken mentioned earlier that we have a retirement happening soon. Actually happens tomorrow. Captain Martin, after over 20 years of service with the fire district, is retiring. So want to wish him a happy and healthy retirement.
Yes.
As well as we'll be having a luncheon for him tomorrow at noon at the station. So if you're available, it'd be great if you could stop by. Help recognize and celebrate Jose's contributions to the community here in American Canyon, and specifically the fire district.
How many years has he served?
Been over 20. Yeah. So just a click over 20. I think it was just a couple months ago we gave him his 20-year pin. So.
Very good.
Yep.
Good to celebrate. And thank you for
Absolutely.
your service.
Our crews recently went out and conducted fire extinguisher training for our business community, which is always a good thing. It's a way for our crews to get to know the folks at the businesses and also help provide them the training they need so that if they do unfortunately come across a fire, they have the knowledge and the ability to potentially extinguish the fire while it's still small and prevent any further damage. Also a reminder to the public that we are out actively conducting our hazard abatement or weed abatement per our ordinance here in American Canyon. So I know especially as we get closer to the 4th of July, this is just another reminder to all of our community members that to cut their weeds and really just practice good general exterior housekeeping to help prevent either a fire starting in their yards or in their property and extending to their structure, or a structure fire igniting the vegetation around their home and potentially endangering an additional structure.
Chief, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, the other evening, last night, the night before, a huge, I'm assuming illegal firework display going on. South end of American Canyon, it could have been the north end of Vallejo on this side. I was not able to determine the street, but there were skyrockets going up and a lot of fireworks being
Yeah,
ignited.
for this conversation, we'll say it was in Vallejo.
Okay.
But yes, that is a good reminder also to the public, and we'll be conducting public outreach. But fireworks are illegal within the city of American Canyon as well as all of Napa County. City provides an excellent fireworks show on the 4th of July, so encourage everyone to sit down, relax, and enjoy the show that the city puts on. It's a very good show, and one of the last remaining fireworks shows that I'm aware of locally. So no need for them to add to the event. The city's already done a great job putting a good event together.
Thank you. City does a great job. Thank you.
Yep. A couple other items. Excuse me. Recently had an opportunity through the relationship with the Chamber of Commerce to speak to a local realtors group. Spent some time with them just talking general overall what they can do to help work with their clients to make their homes more fire safe and so forth. But really good conversation. Was a good opportunity to extend the outreach of the fire district to our real estate community as well.
Very good.
And then also through my work on the Fire Districts Association, especially on the legislative task force, happy to report that the ballot initiative that was being put forward by the California Business Roundtable was actually the California Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional and therefore will not be on the November ballot. But looking into that had some pretty significant potential impacts to local governments and the way they could fund. So it was good to hear that the Supreme Court did issue that ruling, and that will be kept off the ballot.
Very good.
And then lastly, happy to report too that was recently elected to the board of directors for Napa Firewise. So it's a great organization. It's an organization that I was heavily involved with in my previous job, but I'm happy to sit on that board and provide some representation for South Napa County, but specifically American Canyon and moving forward.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. So with that, that concludes my chief's report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you, Chief. Board members?
Yeah, first of all,
Vice Mayor, yes, Mr. Oral.
two things. I happened to catch a conversation with Captain Abelos right on his way up to try out the new boat, I guess is what we're calling it. And I actually said to him, I was like, oh, that sounds like a fun afternoon hanging out on the river, testing out a boat. Didn't know that he was actually going to go rescue someone. So someone's there for work. And then second, I am unable to attend Captain Martin's retirement event. It was almost a blessing because I got to talk to him personally. And that turned into a 20-minute conversation about his time here in American Canyon and how he's looking forward to his retirement, but also how he's looking back at his time in American Canyon. So too bad I can't be there, but know that it's a special moment for him, and it's a special moment for the city of American Canyon and the Fire Protection District to have had him. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will be bringing Captain Martin back in July. He'll be coming before the board with a proclamation honoring his retirement and his years of service. So you'll get another opportunity to talk to him. But yeah, it'll be a loss, but very happy that he's reached the goal of, I think, all of our careers is to retire after a long, fruitful career and be happy, healthy, and be able to enjoy the retirement and get to do things that he wants to do at this point with his family.
All right. Other comment?
I actually have one quick comment. I think I mentioned to you earlier, I had a conversation with one of our residents, Fran. And we were talking about the name, the Fire Protection District versus the Special District. And I had a hard time trying to explain to her my understanding of those two terminologies. And I was hoping that you might be able to do that, not only for me, for Fran, and for the public that may get confused. Because I also heard Ken make reference that it's a special district
Right.
versus a fire protection district, and just to kind of like educate our community.
No, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me on that. That was on my notes and I missed it. So essentially, and this is my understanding, is a special district is a district that's formed for like a specific purpose. So fire protection, fire, right? And then fire protection district is kind of a, how we were formed to provide that service and so forth. And really a lot of it comes down to our governing law, which is the Fire Protection Act, District Law of 1987, which really provides the legal standing for what we can and can't do as a fire protection district. Now, I will tell you there is another expert in the room, Mr. Ross, so he would be able to speak more clearly if I might have bungled that up, but that is my understanding of it. Thank you.
And I think that's the way I explained it to you too, wasn't it, Fran?
Board Member Washington, you did well too.
Mr. Ross, comment?
No, the only thing I'd add is, different from other states in the West, the reason there's so many special districts is that the need for the specific service arose in the state's history. Irrigation districts came, with the exception of the city of Los Angeles and San Francisco and Santa Barbara, before cities, because they need to irrigate. And likewise then, fire districts came right after. The first fire district statute was, I think, 1897. So it's because of the way the economy developed that local government had special districts first. But Chief's right.
Well, very good. Thank you. Is there any other comment from the board?
No, sir.
All right. Any future agenda items? Seeing none?
Well, I have one general comment that somewhere in the near future, we should schedule an annual retreat, not unlike we do with the city. So we can talk about where we're headed, how we're going to get there, what are our options, that kind of thing. Nothing too immediate, but somebody could put that on a radar. And
Yeah, I would agree, and I would second that, and I think it just needs to happen in the next fiscal year, which is Tuesday. So you got a whole year, or Monday, yeah. So,
get back.
Are you doing anything next Wednesday?
yeah.
Cancel your plans.
We
Zoom?
will absolutely look at that. Maybe maybe springtime, get through the holiday season and some of the summertime stuff, and maybe early spring would probably be a good time to do something like that.
Good. I think we'll make a commitment to have that. We'll just set the date. Okay.
And I think spring is a good idea. We'll have a couple of new board members that
Yeah.
will have had 4 or 5 months to figure out which end is up. So
Yeah.
a lot of good stuff there. Thank you.
All right. Anything further from the board?
No, sir.
If not, we've concluded our business for the evening. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Good night, American Canyon.